All right, it is my honour to introduce our preacher this morning. I've going to just talk because I can. Pastor Jace, I've obviously been in youth for quite a few years now, probably like 6 years or something. So Pastor Jace has been an inspiration to me, a great leader to me, taught me a heap. So this next season's going to be interesting, but yeah, I'm incredibly grateful to him. Let's welcome Pastor Jace.
Yeah, so I get the mic, I get the last say. You heard it. Pastor Tony said it, right? Yeah? All witness? Fantastic. He just shrunk in his seat a little bit. Hey, how awesome has Miracle in Me been? I love it. I love hearing the things that God does in people's lives. And I love how Pastor Tony brought the first one and kicked it off. And it's not to reminisce about where we were. It's not to proclaim where our lives were, but it's actually to proclaim the goodness that God has brought in our lives. So today, as I speak, that's what I want you guys to hear as well. Because it's not me wanting to encourage you guys in my old life. It's me wanting to encourage you in my new life. Is that good? So come on, get strapped in. For those who have seen Facebook or Instagram, you know a little bit of what's coming. Have fun. We're talking about family portrait. And I want to just break down a few things of the way to build a family portrait. I want to talk about how to get there in the long run. It is a process to build a family portrait. It sometimes does just happen overnight. However, there should be things that we've built in line with things. There's practices that we should have gone through. There's processes that should have happened. And so I want to let you guys know that there's one of the purposes in life is to build a family portrait. It says in Genesis 1:28, then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. You see, just in Genesis 1:28, I can already see two purposes of my life, of our lives. The first is to be fruitful and multiply. The second is to reign over the earth. We're actually called to and be filled with a purpose to multiply and reign. Now, church, I want to let you know this morning that I'm going to be talking about relationships. I'm just going to get the thing out there first, right? I am going to be using the word sex. If you want to giggle, giggle now, because in me, I don't have any form of this. I don't. Because of the miracle that God's produced in me, that this is something that needs to be talked about. I can remember my wife and I were at a mate's place for a bonfire. And this mate, he's one of my closest friends, and the girl that he was engaged to and just about to marry was there. And her sister was just about to marry a bloke that looked like identical to me. He sounded the same. He was a Sparky. And so we were getting to know, obviously we knew one of my closest mates, but we were getting to know his new family. And both of these couples were engaged, and conversation started around sex because they had no clue. In their lifetime, it was so taboo and not spoken about. Relationships were so taboo and not spoken about that they didn't know any wisdom around it. So I want to encourage us this morning to be encouraged, to be filled. There's going to be parts that may not be your season at the moment, and that's okay. That's awesome. But there's going to be other parts that are your season. And so I want to start by talking about guard your heart. Another title that you could put in here for this is the season of singleness. Because there's a process that has to happen in a season of singleness. So for all the single people out there, these are some of the things that you should be doing. In the Bible, it tells us in Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else. All else. For it determines the course of your life. You see, God wants to encourage us that there is such an importance on our heart, and it is one of the most, it is the most valuable thing that we have. I'm a bloke, yeah? I love spy movies. Action movies, you name it, but spy movies are just incredible. Even like when you see them stealing stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like they go into the museum, there's this massive diamond or the Mona Lisa or whatever it may be. And normally in those situations, there's this scene that comes. They're like dropped down through the roof. You picturing it? Fantastic. Hanging on by a cord, you got the music going. Da-na-na-na. Yeah? And just lowering. They're like this, just ready. Getting lower and lower. Obviously, legs behind, like can't do that at the moment. Lower and lower and lower. And then next second, they detach. And then somehow they missed every single laser getting into the room. But now there's lasers all around them. And then they've got to do these like, I can't do it as good. That's why I love watching it, right? And they've got to go through all these lasers and just to get to the item that they're trying to acquire, right? How many of you know that have seen those videos, those films, that item they're trying to acquire is not just a blank piece of paper? No? How many know that it's not the litter box from a cat? Like imagine that, if they had that much security guarding this litter box. No. All that security is guarding something extremely valuable. And church, this is what God says about our heart. That we actually need to guard our heart above all else because it determines the course of your life. So what that tells me is when we protect our heart, our life is going to be fruitful. But there's one way and only one way that we can really protect our heart. And it's not block yourself off from everyone else. Right? That's not healthy. That's exactly what the devil wants. That's what he wants to do to us. He wants to isolate us, right? It's not healthy and it's not a way that you guard your heart. That is actually how you bring trauma and pain towards your heart. But you see, the only way to guard our heart is through boundaries. And church, today I want to let you know that boundaries communicate value. You can tell how much somebody values themselves by how many boundaries they have in place. Full stop. You can tell. The fewer the boundaries, the less the value. It's like I make sure every night I lock the door of the house. Most nights, sometimes I forget. Sorry, my love. But majority of the time, I don't forget that. I remember to lock it because the most valuable thing is inside, which is me and my family. My family. My wife and my two boys. You see, because I value it, I want to protect it. I want to put boundaries up around it. One of the things I love about boundaries is that the more you put, the higher you deem the value of the item. So I can have a conversation with you and find out how much you actually value yourself just by practices that you do throughout the week. By how many boundaries you have up to protect and guard your heart. Church, it needs to be guarded above all else. You see, and in this time of the season of singleness is the time to do it. It's not the time to do it when you're already in a relationship. I I wanted to put a name to this next quote, but there was like a few. There was Malcolm X, some Arthur bloke, and one other dude that I was just like, I don't know. But it says, those who stand for nothing fall for everything. So what that tells me, church, is I want to rephrase that and say, if you don't have a standard before dating, your relationship will create the standard for your life. This is why boundaries are important to us, because they're the standard that we have set in place. They're how we deem the value of our own personal life. I even love, building a house. Whoever's built a house, who's built a house before or seen the process happen? What do they start with? Foundations. They dig it out. They make it deep, especially if it's that red soil or that black soil. Ooh, deeper the better, because you need that house to stand strong. But they take their time. I can remember, my father's a builder, right? And I can remember being on job sites, as long as I can remember. I used to have a little plastic toolbox that I'd carry, little helmet, little yellow helmet. I still got a photo at my parents' place. I look cute. I can say that. And I'd be next to my father, just with this massive ass smile on my face, going to it. But I can remember my dad talking to me about situations and processes and all this kind of stuff and how the house got built. And he actually said to me, the one time that people complain the most is in the foundations, because the rest of it's easy and the rest of it you can see happening quickly. But church, I feel like that's for our life too. We have to stop whinging about the moments that we spend single or spend guarding our heart or preparing to guard our heart, to work out with God the boundaries that we need to put in place. You know what? We need to stop whinging about that, stop shortcutting that, because it is the foundation for your life. It will be the foundation for your marriage. It will be the foundation for any relationship you step foot in. Now, when I say relationship in that context, I don't mean boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean for every person you rub shoulders with, not just romantically, but every person you rub shoulders with, if you do not have a foundation, if you do not stand for anything, you will fall for everything. It's why the foundations take the longest when building a house. You see, we need to build a foundation for our relationship before we get into relationship. Have you ever heard of anybody? Now, I don't do this because I actually need to probably train before I put my hand up for this. But have you ever seen marathon runners just rock up the week of and never do anything? I haven't. They spend hours, they spend so much time training before they even think about putting their name down as a nominee to compete. And that's the process that we should be taking when it comes to our life and the process to guard our heart. We need to go through that training, spend that time with God. Because no matter what relationship we have, if we're not ready for it, we will hurt through it. If we haven't spent that time setting up boundaries, there will be heartbreak for either you or for the other person. And I know for me, I want to build a strong marriage with my wife. I want to build a strong bond with my boys. But I can't just rock up the day of thinking that I've got this covered. I actually need to go through this training process that I like to these days call the season of singleness. But that's so hard if you're already in a relationship. But I'm so glad. You see, this was part of my story, that I didn't prepare for the marathon. that I didn't have the foundations built with Jesus Christ, that I didn't have all those things prepared and ready before Zoe and I stepped into marriage. She probably did. I was immature. I didn't have it all together. And there was things that I had to learn, but I'm so grateful that God gave me the ability. Well, you know what? He just did it. Let's be honest, because I was willing to sacrifice my heart to him. He actually molded it and changed it. He repaired it. He made it whole so I could give a whole heart to my wife. So I want to let you know, if you haven't done that in your season of singleness, it's not too late, because God's a miracle worker. But after the season of singleness comes dating. I hate the word dating. I hate boyfriend, girlfriend. Don't ask me how to communicate it. I don't know. I'm going to leave that up to you. But I want to actually help us today, because like dating, a boundary's made to be pushed. Like the boundaries that you've set up in your season of singleness, are they made to be pushed? Like we've got to understand that there is nowhere in the Bible that actually specifically preaches or talks about dating. Because a lot of those days, it was all prearranged, right? Normally at like 13, 14, yeah, that's weird. For me to say that, that's weird. But that's what the case was. So there's nowhere in the Bible that actually specifically talks about dating. However, if we look at the Proverbs 4, when it said, above all else, guard your heart, and we bring that concept into dating, what we can see is that boundaries aren't made to be pushed. And through dating, we need to understand that I want to define dating as the process of proving you are trustworthy, or the process of proving your trustworthiness. But it's not just you who has to prove it, it's the other person as well. And it's not just romantic relationships. Pastor Tony and I went through a process of proving our trustworthiness to each other. I removed friends. As soon as I learned this stuff, as soon as God showed me this stuff, I actually don't speak to some of my friends anymore. Because I could see that they weren't trustworthy with the heart that I had, with the value that God had placed on it. We need to understand that it's a process to prove trustworthiness. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens little by little by little. I need to make sure I'm on my notes. Proverbs 3, 5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. We not only have to ensure that they prove their trustworthiness or we prove ours, we actually have to put our trust in God. If you want to have the wisdom to make it through, you need to actually receive it from God. You see, your relationship with God will determine every other relationship in your life. Church, the purpose for boundaries are not for restriction. Boundaries are for protection. Pastor Ian was having a chat with me beforehand, and I sort of knew this, but he reminded me of it, that the law around putting a fence up is to not keep your animals in, it's actually to keep everything else out. Boundaries by law are not for restriction, it's for protection. So we need to start to apply this to our lives, to apply this to our heart, to apply this to our relationship. I love what it says in Matthew. Got to put the verse in there. But let your yes be yes and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. You see, boundaries are not made to be pushed. If you have placed a boundary after spending time with God, that boundary is in place for a reason. and it should not be pushed. It should not be moved. I love how it says yes be yes and no be no. It means that you need to be confident in the decision that has already been made. Because a yes mean yes cannot be in the moment. A yes to mean yes has to be pre-planned. It cannot be just come up with now because you actually haven't processed that. You see, there's two questions, and I much prefer the second question. But the first question asks, how far can I go? Question, is that yes means yes? Or no means no? I don't believe so. How far can I go means maybe. How far can I go happens in a moment. How far can I go it's a question around lack of preparation. It's a question of, maybe this much, or maybe a little further. It's testing the water. Church, we're actually called for our yes to mean yes and our no to mean no. How far can I go is neither of those two. So I want to encourage us in our relationships, romantic or not. The better question is, how can I honor God, this person, and myself? Because that doesn't test the waters, that doesn't tempt temptation, that actually says God first. That actually says them first. That actually says me first. Especially if we honor all three. You guys ready for this one? Are we doing well? Fantastic. Sex. Is there any more giggles? Copy. Sex. Is it naughty or nice? Now, I want to say a disclaimer. Young person, if you need to, cover your ears. Because the Bible actually tells us in Song of Songs, chapter 8, verse 4, I believe it is, O women of Jerusalem, do not awaken love too early. So if this is going to tempt you, block your ears. If you actually want to learn how to honor God through every situation and every season, then I want to encourage you to listen. Because sex is awesome. But church, it is more than just a physical act. It also consists of spiritual and emotional links. And church, we can't talk about sex without talking about God. Full stop. We can't. You see, sex is powerful, so powerful that God deemed it to require boundaries to protect it and the people involved. So powerful. Have you ever wondered, bear with me, because I don't know why you would wonder it, but have you ever wondered why you have to light a fire in your house in the fireplace? I just thought it was common sense, right? But I got to thinking, God deems that sex is so powerful and he's put this constraint of marriage, that's where it should be contained to. So I got to thinking that, why do we put fire in a fireplace? To contain it, for protection. Because if I was to light that fire on the rug in the lounge room, I don't know about you, but I think I've got a 9 out of 10 chance that house is going up in flames. Yeah? However, if I light it in a full sink in a little plastic dish, I might have a less of a chance. But you see, there's constraints put around things so powerful for a reason. And fire is so powerful. So I want to encourage you, please light your fire in the fireplace. Don't let it be lit on your rug in the lounge room. That's just silly, right? But it goes the same for sex. That sex is so powerful that it brings two together. We can't talk about sex without talking about God. Mark 10, 6-9, it says, "But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one." So they are no longer two, but one flesh. I know I've said it before. I know Pastor Tony said it. It is so important when the Bible repeats itself. It is so important when the Bible repeats itself. That through marriage, they will be made one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Genesis 1:27. So, first of all, we understand, we're all on the same page, that sex is powerful, right? That it should be in a contained environment, which we call marriage. Yep. Fantastic. Not on the lounge room floor. Well, that's up to you. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Contextually, when we talk about this moment in time, I actually need to talk a little bit about a tabernacle. Who knows what a tabernacle is? For those who don't, it's a place that's been built for worship. And the tabernacle was never built from the inside out. It was always built from the outside in. And the very last thing that was placed in a tabernacle, any guesses? What was that? A bell. No? No. I'll claim that. Yeah, 100%. The image of the God that it was built to worship, which back in those days, contextually, was the Ark of the Covenant. So it was an image of the God that it was built to worship, was the last thing that was placed in. And church, this is the story of Genesis, especially the beginning. Because God built his tabernacle, which we call earth. And the last thing that he did was placed his very own image in his tabernacle. His very own image being you and me, being human beings, mankind. Church, there's importance in this. That we are all the image of God, that no one misses out. And that God would honor us so much that he would give it to us. But let's check this word image out, shall we? Image, in the Hebrew, it was sislim. And its meaning was an image, likeness, or idol. And I love this picture. It makes me think about when Moses went up the hill of Mount Sinai and came down and found that everyone had melted all their gold into a golden calf. They'd made an idol. So what I can't help but think about is the fact that God melted down a part of himself and placed it in me so that I could be his image. I'm not God. Don't confuse me. But I am an image bearer for God, just as you are. That's powerful. But let's talk about this because in Hebrew, they're all pictures, right? It's just one big picture book. Yeah? The SE is actually a fish hook with bait on it. The L is a cattle prod. And the M is power. So the picture actually together means what lures us is prodding us to power. That's the image of God that's in you. It's He's luring you and prodding you to power. He didn't give you His image to make you less special. He didn't give you His image to squash you down and suppress you. He actually gave you His image to make us better. It's a prodding to make you stronger. It's a prodding to bring the God out of you, the best out of you. What lures us is prodding us to power. And what we can see in this as well is that when it said created human beings in His own image, at the end it goes male and female, He created them. Church, what that means is God honored both male and female with the same amount of His image in each of us. How we see God affects how we treat people. I want to say that again, but more directive. How you see God will change how you treat people. You guys are all like, what does this have to do about sex? But you see, if we believe that each person is the image of God, then we can no longer rightly objectify people. Because in doing so, we are actually objectifying God. We need to honor His image in each and every individual. Now, I don't want, like I said before, I don't want any of this to come across condemning. I'm not here with a massive ruler to condemn anybody, right? I want this to be encouraging and life-giving, to help equip you to see what God actually says and what God sees for each and every one of us. And a little bit more information this morning. The word sex finds its etymology in disconnection. The Latin word, sex is from the Latin word sacar, which means to sever, to separate, to cut apart. Church, you see, the first dimension of sex is the awareness of the disconnection. That's the first dimension of it. The second dimension of sex is all the ways we go about trying to reconnect with one another. You see, remember, it's not just a physical act. It's not just a spiritual act. It's not just an emotional act. It's also the ways we go to reconnect. So if we participate in sex, in a way that brings dishonor or brings objectification, it is actually unsexual. It's unsexual because it's not reconnecting and it's not drawing together. It is actually separating us even further. Hebrews 13:4 says, marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed kept pure. For God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. Today, that's God's job, right? I just want to specifically say that is God's job. That's not what I'm doing. If that's your story, let's seek God over it. But what I want to focus in on is that marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed kept pure. If we link that with Matthew 5:28, But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. You see, church, what this tells me is it's to keep the marriage bed pure, it's not just one person physically. It's not just one person physically. It's not just keep that extra people outside of it. But what I see when I read this is that Jesus actually says that it starts with your eye. Blokes, have you ever just been sitting back and kicking it? Yeah, cool terminologies, right? You've been with your mate somewhere, and then this really attractive lady walks in. And I don't know about you, but when I was younger, all of us dudes would just start to sit back a little bit further. And you knew what was going through everyone's mind. Yeah, I'd rate that. What a good butt. Oof, those legs. She's probably about 8.5. Women, you're not in the clear. Some of you probably do that. Because I know. My wife did it. No, just kidding. Especially when she saw me. But no, have you ever been sitting, especially married people, have you ever been sitting with your girlfriends and you hear how much their husband does around the house? You hear that, such and such husband cooks. I wish my man cooked. Such and such husband cleans. Yeah, see, you girls aren't out of this. He cleans. Dang, girl. That's fine. You know what I'm saying? I want me some of that. He cooks and cleans? What? He changes dirty nappies. Woo! You see, church, as soon as we start to do this, as soon as we start to rank and rate, as soon as the blokes kick back and go, yeah, nice legs, as soon as the ladies kick back and go, dirty nappies, whoop, whoop, as soon as we start to do that, we are actually taking that person from being a person. We're removing the image bearer and making them an object. Or a that. And when we objectify, church, it's never good. We don't get away with it too well. Is this wrong? Is it wrong? I want to revert back to the previous one. It's not how far can I go. We need to actually ask ourselves in the moment, is what I'm doing honoring God, that person, and myself, especially if we're married? Because as soon as we bring that in, as soon as we lust isn't just sexual. You can lust after power. You can lust after a man that changes dirty nappies. You can lust after so many different things. And as soon as you bring that into your marriage, you're now objectifying that other man or woman and your partner. And that makes your marriage bed impure. It's not just about the physical act. It's deeper than that. You see, comparison always objectifies. Objectification changes people from a person to an object or a that. When people are treated as objects, it makes humanity less special. It makes humanity less special to God as well. Not to God. But there is nothing more special to God than humanity, than humans, than each and every one of us in this place. So we got to start making it more special to our fellow image bearers, not our fellow objects. But you see, something that teaches us to objectify is porn. It's sex outside of marriage. It's all these other, it's the world, let's be honest. It teaches us to objectify, not to honor the image bearer. You see, pornography warps our view on what sex should look like. It's not just a movie. It's not just two people having sex. It is changing our views on the marriage bed, on our sexual part of the relationship. But it even starts to change our views in every other area of our life, because when we allow objectification to slip into one area, it then leads to gossip in another. It leads to so many other things. And we need to understand that comparison always objectifies. When people are objectified, the image of God is forgotten. However, when people are honored as image bearers, then the image of God is magnified. And church, that is what we're called to do. We're called to honor one another. You see, how we see God affects how we treat people. Can I be real with you guys today? I'm already talking about sex, so I might as well. Zoe and I got married 8 years ago. Did I get it right? Confirmed. Zoe and I got married 8 years ago. Now, I'm about to be honest with you guys. And to be honest with you, I don't care if you hurl slander at me and tell me I'm the worst person in the world. Because God's already done something to me. That I am no longer bound by this, but I actually walk in freedom from it. See, church, when I was growing up, my sex talk from my father was talking leads to sex. I was like, sweet. Why are you laughing at me? I'm just being honest. I didn't grow up in a Christian family home. I didn't grow up with those beliefs. I had grandparents who did, but my parents didn't. And so that's how it was communicated to me that talking leads to sex. My dad did say, so don't talk to girls. I just tend to forget that part of it. Because as a teenage boy, I heard that talking was all I needed to do. So through my teenage years, I found a way to use my words to get whatever I wanted. Going along with, I didn't think I was good looking back in that day. I'm being honest, I didn't. Apparently I was. Not bad on the eyes. And so back in that day, those two mixed together was dangerous. And I found so many ways that my words would be respectful, but my intentions were disrespectful. It sounded like they were the best thing in the world to me. It was abuse, in a way. Because after I got what I wanted, I'd just walk away and they would be left crushed. Church, I'm not condoning this whatsoever. I want to let you know so blokes, you step up, and girls, you're aware. But also, if you have a similar story to me, that God can do the miraculous thing. So I had previous sexual partners before I was married. when Zoe and I started having sex, I would actually compare with previous people that I had sex with. Zoe's only just recently heard about that because God's been talking to me that I need to talk about this with people. Because I had so much shame and guilt. Shame is just the fear of not belonging. I had so much shame and guilt around that. Even though God had done the miraculous, I did not want to let my wife down. But the truth is, that's my story. It wasn't until that I started studying relationships because I wanted to equip young people with the best knowledge that they could be given. I wanted to bless your young people with information about what God says and about how God encourages things. That I actually had to go through a moment of healing whilst I was in a marriage. Whilst I was full of shame trying to hide it. But I went, you know what? I owe it to my wife, to my future kids. I owe it to everybody. But most of all, I owed it to myself. And the God that I so eagerly love. Through my teenage years, I allowed porn to warp what I thought sex should look like. I allowed it to have a hold of me. Church, but you see, the miracle that God performed in me was the miracle of seeing every person as an image bearer of Him. That seeing every person deserved to be honored how I honored God. And I want to encourage us today, whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're married, I want to encourage each and every one of us today that there's boundaries that we need to set up. That there's a process of trustworthiness that we need to reassess. And that there's a heart that just needs to be changed, eyes that need to be changed, that we no longer objectify the image bearer. Rather, we honor them and treat them as a person. I want to let you know that today, whenever my wife and I have sex, she's shrinking in her chair now. But whenever we have sex, I don't think about anyone else. I think about God and I think about my wife. Because of the growth, let's say, because of the surrender that I brought, our marriage bed was made pure again. I want to let you know today that whatever you're facing, whatever it is, that there is nothing that can take you away from the good grace of God. All we need to do is surrender to Him. You see, how we see God affects how we treat people. And I no longer see objects when I look at people like I did many years ago. I now see God walking this earth. So I got a few questions for you today. The first question I have is, Have you placed enough boundaries to properly guard your heart? Have you continuously sought to prove your trustworthiness? I want to tell you, married couples, even after you've gotten married, we still need to keep proving that we're trustworthy of the most valuable possession that God tells us to guard above all else. So have you continuously sought to prove your trustworthiness to your partner? Have you been honoring every image bearer that you walk past? And church today, because I believe in the miraculous power of God, I believe that in His name, that anything can happen. There's a song at the moment, Tear Off the Roof by Brandon Lake. And in it, it says, I don't want to just stand in the crowd. And it's talking about the woman with the issue of blood when she reached out for the hem of Jesus, that she didn't want to just stand in the crowd. She wanted to receive what God actually had for her. She showed boldness and courage when she reached out and touched the hem of His cloak. So with that in mind, that, look, if you want to just stand in the crowd today, that's awesome, that's okay. God loves you. But if you want to be, I want to ask if you'd be honest with yourself, if you have any brokenness that you want to take to God right now. Whatever it may be, if there's brokenness that you want to take to God right now. As we sing this next song, I want to encourage you to bring it at the front to God. And surrender it at His feet. Lay it down so you no longer have to pick that up again. Come on, church, let's all stand. And right now, let's just worship the King of Kings.
Jesus, oh my healing, oh I will reach for your hand, oh my great, oh physician, oh death is not how it ends, the work was finished at Calvary. Your body broken, so mine is complete. The testimony of faith will be, because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Oh Jesus, oh my breakthrough, oh healing still on the way. Oh by your stripes, oh every bit of wound, I'm not leaving here the same. The work was finished. The work was finished at Calvary. Your body broken, so mine is complete. And my testimony of faith will be, because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Oh, God can restore us. Oh, there's power. Oh, there's power in the cross, power in Jesus' blood. There's power in the promise. Oh, it is done. There's power in the cross, power in Jesus' blood. There's power in the promise. Oh, it is done. I'm covered by your cross, covered by Jesus' blood. I'm covered by your promise. Oh, it is done. I'm covered by your cross, covered by Jesus' blood. I'm covered by your promise. Oh, it is done. Oh, it is done. Oh, it is done. Oh, it is done. The work was finished at Calvary. Oh, yes, it was.
Your body broke.
Your body,
so
Jesus.
mine is complete.
We sing, my testimony of faith will be, because of Christ there's a miracle in me. The work was finished at Calvary. Your body broken, so mine is complete. My testimony of faith will be, because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Oh, because of Christ there's a miracle in me. Because of Christ,
Because of Christ.
oh, there's a miracle in me. Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Come on, if you want prayer for anything this morning, if like Pastor Jace asked some questions at the end of that message, if that just raised anything in you, and you just want prayer for anything, the altar is open. There'll be a team here to pray for you. And it's not a place of judgment. It's not a place of condemnation. It's just a place where there'll be a team to stand with you and support you and pray with you for whatever you're needing. If not, we did actually have a birthday in the church on Friday. So there's some birthday cake in the cafe. So make sure you don't run off. Go church.